Hey everyone, I'm here with a video on how to play with a fish. No, that's a joke. I'm not. I'm here with a much more boring topic, but Claudia is going to help me make it a little bit more interesting. I'm here to talk with you about whether there is actually a vet shortage in North America at the moment. But before we go on, please remember to pet that bell notification icon, squish the subscribe button, and please like and share this video as you see fit. So some of you might have seen in the news lately a lot of stories about a supposed veterinary shortage in North America. Certainly, we've seen that a little bit on the CBC in Canada, and I'm sure there's people talking about it in the States as well. And I just want to speak to that a little bit because I run a couple of veterinary hospitals. I work in the industry, so I feel like I have a reasonable amount of insight into this matter. And I can tell you that it has been very challenging to hire a veterinarian over the last 2 years. My clinics have pretty much been short-staffed for well over a year. So there is a challenge that exists in the industry of hiring veterinarians, and hiring competent veterinarians is even tougher. But does this really mean that there's a shortage within the profession? Well, my take on it is that the answer is no. There isn't a shortage in the veterinary profession, but there is a systemic problem with the way that the veterinary industry, specifically the small animal veterinary industry, is structured in North America. So let me explain what I mean by this. Historically, most veterinarians work in small animal practices, usually clinics with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 veterinarians in them. Over the last couple decades, things have been consolidating to where there's more and more larger multi-vet hospitals around. But in places like Vancouver, for example, most clinics are still 1.5 to maybe 2 full-time doctor practices, sort of the more traditional size. And this is not good for a couple of reasons. Now, I know that many of you love the idea of having your friendly neighborhood veterinarian where you can see the same vet every time you go, and people love the small practice model. But here's the thing. Any clinic with less than 3 veterinarians is not good for anybody. And I'm saying this as a guy who owns several clinics that are like 2 full-time equivalents that I'm trying to get up to a more sensible size. And let me explain why. If you have less than 3 full-time doctors in a clinic, that means nobody can actually take time off, whether it's for vacation, maternity leave, sick leave. You can't take time off without seriously disrupting operations. You just can't. These small clinics rely on a model of bringing in locum doctors to cover shifts if any of their regular doctors need time off, which is way worse than having a regular doctor cover the extra patients for a number of reasons. Whereas a larger hospital would simply redistribute the caseload between the existing doctors and allow people to take time off. The other reason is that with smaller clinics, you simply don't have enough money to get all the latest equipment and have highly trained staff. You basically need about 3 veterinarians earning as much as they can earn in a year to start supporting some of the newer equipment out there and also having highly trained veterinary technicians and nurses on board. Costs in a veterinary hospital routinely run well over 90%, and so smaller hospitals simply will not be as well equipped and will not have support staff that are as well trained as larger hospitals on average, which is of course bad for the patients and the clients. And this is where the classical economic model completely breaks down. Having more competition between veterinarians and having lower prices is not at all a good thing. And classical Keynesian economics are total BS, but that's a subject for a different person's video. What I'm going to tell you guys though is that if you go to a cheap clinic and you see a veterinarian who's underpaid, stressed out, burnt out, doesn't have time to research your case, doesn't have time to spend more than 15 minutes with you, has outdated mediocre equipment, is lacking key pieces of equipment, and has a bunch of people with a high school education working there to support him instead of fully trained veterinary technicians, then guess what? You're not getting a good deal. You're actually throwing money away down the drain. That kind of situation is not helping anybody. So back to the question of whether there's a veterinary shortage in North America, I'm going to say no, there isn't, but there is an excess of veterinary clinics. For the first time in history that I know of, we actually have demand exceeding supply when it comes to veterinary care. But this is happening not because there's not enough vets, but because there's too many facilities, so the vets are spread out too thin. There have been a number of veterinary economic surveys commissioned by the American Veterinary Medical Association that looked at the industry as a whole in North America. And I believe that's the common conclusion they've come to, is that while there does seem to be difficulty by certain clients of accessing veterinary services, the actual salaries of veterinarians in North America have been stagnant for like 20 years. So using classical economic models, you can't really say that there is an imbalance in supply and demand, but there's definitely something weird going on. And again, that weirdness is that there is the right number of vets now in North America. There was too many before, but they're spread thin over a bunch of facilities which are way too small to function efficiently. To support this view, I'm going to talk to you guys about California. California has historically had the best paid vets in North America. California has also historically been the only place I've ever heard of where people have to wait 4 days to get a veterinary consult. In some places in California, like the big cities. So in California, you actually have a proper ratio of clients to veterinarians. In Vancouver, I think it's been unheard of until just this last year of the pandemic that people couldn't get an appointment with their vet the same day, or at least it was very rare and people get all upset about it. No other profession, whether it's a lawyer or a clinical counselor or a psychiatrist or a dentist, really has that kind of availability. And this just shows you that there's vet schedules are way too open. And without getting too technical about it, there's just a lot of economic indicators that show that there's actually an excess of supply of veterinary services relative to demand. But again, they're just distributed very inefficiently. Unfortunately, what we have is all these veterinary clinic owners who spend their entire lives and careers working in an environment where essentially there's an excess of supply and a moderate amount of demand. And so they're just freaking right out right now because they can't hire a veterinarian and they just don't know what to do about it. They can't adapt to this new reality, of course, made much worse by the reduction in mobility of the workforce during the pandemic. And so people are freaking out and screaming, there's not enough vets. But in reality, it's just that they're not working efficiently. And again, as somebody who has multiple small clinics that have been short-staffed for a couple of years, I can tell you, you can still provide care to all of your clients. You can still grow as we have over the past year and a half. You can still work with a reasonable schedule, take time off, and provide continuity of care to your clients and patients. But you have to work smarter and more efficiently than vets have been traditionally wont to do. So the message here to my fellow veterinarians is to stop complaining about the fact that our industry, for the first time in known history, is finally seeing a healthy amount of demand for our services. Veterinary salaries have gone up in the last year for the first time in like 20 years relative to inflation, which is fantastic news for veterinarians. And maybe as a veterinary clinic owner, I'm cutting my own throat a little bit by saying this. Yes, that is a Terry Pratchett reference, but the truth is, this has never been a better time to be an associate veterinarian and a more challenging time to be a clinic owner. But this is good for the industry. It is good for the doctors. And frankly speaking, it is good for the clients and their patients. Because this situation, in my opinion, in my optimistic opinion, is going to lead veterinarians to start getting smarter about the way we work, leveraging our support staff better, becoming more efficient, which in the long term will lead to better patient care and a healthier industry. And I do want to caution my colleagues against panicking and trying to do something silly like open up more vet schools or import more veterinarians from overseas that aren't maybe as qualified as they should be to work in our region, and spoil this amazing chance that we have to actually have a healthy industry. So why am I making this video and putting it out into the world instead of just in front of veterinarians? Well, honestly, one reason is because the only way that this video is going to get seen by any vets is if I publish it on YouTube. The other reason, however, is I think that it's important for clients to know what's going on with the veterinary industry because you guys obviously rely on us to help you take care of your pets. And another reason is to ask you guys to be understanding of the changes that are happening right now, because on top of all the COVID stress, there is a lot of people freaking out because they have to change the way they work. And this change is for the better. Stress isn't always a bad thing, but not everybody likes it. And I guess one way that you guys can really help veterinarians while also helping yourselves is to remember that it's not a big deal if you have to wait 3 days for a veterinary appointment if you present the case on time. Meaning, don't wait for your pet to be sick for 2 weeks to see if they get better. Don't wait to present them until they look like they're about to die within 24 hours, and then it really does become important that they get seen immediately. Bring your pets in early. You do annual health checks and prophylactic workups. And if your pet looks sick, get it checked out before it becomes a crisis. then it won't matter that you have to wait a few days, and you'll also save yourself a lot of money and save your pet a lot of suffering, because obviously being proactive about healthcare is always a good idea. So that's my takeaway message for clients from all this. So I hope you found this interesting and maybe a little bit helpful, and thank you very much for watching. And please stay tuned for more helpful Vancouver Vet videos. Also, I'm going to invite you to go check out my new clip channel called HV Vet Clips. And by subscribing to it and hitting the bell notification icon, you're going to help work the YouTube algorithm to get my videos in front of more people's eyes, which will get more pet owners the help that they sorely need. So thank you once again for watching, and have a great day.